Hi, everybody. Welcome again to another episode of the ShopNotes Podcast. It's episode number 152. We got the full crew here today for an exciting episode talking about shop update from Logan and some tools, projects that are going on, all kinds of stuff in the Woodsmith and Popular Woodworking and ShopNotes Land. This episode is brought to you by Titebond. You want a glue that you can trust. And fortunately, Titebond has the glue you need to get the job done with confidence. From interior glues with strong initial tack and short clamp time to exterior glues with exceptional strength and water resistance, look to Titebond, the right glue for your next project. For more information, visit Titebond.com. Now, last episode, John and I were talking about different techniques on how to do stuff at, and sometimes like where the balance is of having a mastery of a single technique and kind of using that as your baseline to knowing two or more techniques for a given task. So, in response to that, we had a couple of comments. Jeff says, "Nice to see John again." He says a parallel YouTube channel could be in the spirit of the original X-Files, but called John's Unnecessary Projects. But seriously, showing multiple ways of techniques for the same result is great when one does not have every tool available, but has some. Daniel said that the kitchen island or work table idea is a good one, and he said one of the home remodeling shows recently used an actual antique woodworking bench as an island. Face vise, wagon vise, dog holes, the works. They put a nice finish on it, though, so go for it. Which, I mean, in the kitchen, having a face vise and dog holes is always a good idea.
Yeah, like how else are you gonna hold on to your like leg of hamon that you're slicing off?
Right.
With your Lee Nielsen number 4.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do some juicing in the vise, maybe.
Yeah. Well, you can use the dog holes to like hold your KitchenAid in place.
That's true. For the unbalanced turning of the dough.
Right. Michael says that YouTuber Mike Farrington did a video of him using an end mill in his drill press to make a mortise. Looked like it worked well and no nibs. He's hoping to try it eventually. And that's one that I had actually done as a video for Video Edition. And it does work really well, using a router end mill bit in your drill press. But you really have to crank up the speed for that to cut efficiently without it feeling a little too grabby. You know, like it just wants to kind of pull away. And then you really need to support the piece in front and with a fence. Because again, otherwise it can kind of shudder, I think.
The other thing we talked about a little bit in last episode, we were joking around about the weather and how spring and summer and winter kind of all intermix in the same week. And just to recap what we had last weekend to kind of show an example of that, on Friday it was a high of 85 degrees, windy, red flag warning, fires, whatnot. Saturday, I think it was a high of like 45 or 50, rain, lightning, hail. Sunday, high of 35, blizzard.
Snowed all day.
All day. That was our weekend.
Yep.
So, who knows what we'll get next?
Yep. It sucks when spring isn't on a weekend.
Right. Yeah. Have spring and summer on the weekends and then whatever during the week.
So, I want to do an episode of What Is It? Or a segment of What Is It? Because I have something that I don't know what it is. I've had it for years.
Okay.
I haven't been able to figure out what it is. So maybe somebody, maybe one of you guys, but maybe somebody that watches on YouTube will know what this is and what this came from. Because I've held on to it and I've been trying to figure out a use for it. Okay, and this is what it is. So it is this big piece of extruded aluminum. It's almost like 80-20 or whatever.
80-20 kind of.
Almost. But I'll tell you what this came with, okay? And I don't think that it actually is from that, but maybe. Probably 10 years ago, I was at a flea market here in town, and I picked up a Woodhaven crosscut sled. Like a $400 sled. I paid $10 for it.
Wow.
Sure.
This was taped to it. There was nothing on that Woodhaven crosscut sled that would have like held this.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it like came from a Woodhaven jig or what. I can't come up with a good use for it. But I've also held on to it because I think I'll come up with a good use for it.
It's the running board on a truck. That's what I think it is.
It's just, ooh, I laughed on it and dust blew into my coffee. Yeah, I mean, it kind of looks like that, but like, I just don't know. Maybe I could slide this into a T-track and use it as a shelf, and then you could hang stuff from these bottom ones.
Oh, there you go.
T-track accessories and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what it's like, right? I just don't. I've never been able to say definitively, hey, that's what that is.
Yeah. No, that's a puzzlement.
Yeah, so maybe I should take a picture of it and try like the Google image search and see what happens.
Yeah.
Ooh, that'd be cool.
Just because I happened to plop my butt down to start this podcast with you guys, and I'm like, I wonder if anybody knows what that is, because I have never been able to figure it out.
Chris Fitch knows.
I guarantee you he does. Chris Fitch isn't speaking to us currently.
Yeah.
Right. So on an update, I'll take a photo of it and put it on the show notes page, but I just about have the dado plane fully functional again.
Okay.
So, got the body cleaned up, the blade on it. The back wasn't super flat, but because it's kind of a vintage steel, with those diamond stones that we have, the 300 grit made short work of it. It was probably 20 minutes total of flattening the back just to get it all the way, and then had to make a couple of new wedges for it. But my hope is that later today I'll be able to put it to use, try it out.
Nice.
Then after that I'll have to see once if I really want to use it.
Then it just becomes a push block for dado cuts on the table saw if it doesn't work out.
Ooh, that's a tip. You could go to flea markets and get old wooden-bodied hand planes, especially if they're missing irons or wedges and stuff, and then just use them as push blocks for the table saw.
Notch it out first.
Yep. We would not get any hate mail on that at all.
Yeah.
So, anyway, there you go. I'm excited about this dado plane, but the only thing that gives me pause is the fact that it's a 7/8.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to start building thick stuff.
Right.
Healthy furniture.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good base.
Yeah. Then, speaking of tools, I have Chris had designed a coping saw for the magazine. I don't know, it's probably about a year ago now. And I got a couple of the spare parts for it, so I want to finish that up. So hopefully I can do that. After that is my next shop project. Speaking of your shop, Logan, and shop projects, you're going to be going from the place where you currently are into your new shop.
Yep. Sometime. That's what this. That's
Right.
what the legend foretold.
Are you, because you're going from a small, the new place is bigger, are you just going to wholesale move everything out there, or are you going to take the opportunity to do some evaluation?
Oh, I've already evaluated.
Oh, yeah?
I have already evaluated, and I have already bought way too much crap to go in the new shop.
Yeah.
So,
That's what I was gonna say. Is it already full of tools you've picked up, so you can't
yes.
even move stuff?
There's actually 3 pieces of equipment that I've paid for and I haven't picked up yet. So I am going from a 22 by 14 shop, which is what I'm in right now. So it's about 250, 300 square feet, to 1,300. 1,300 is the woodworking area, excluding bathroom and office. So yeah, I'm gaining a lot of room. The stuff that's in here. So basically, let me give you kind of lay the field. Out of this shop that I'm sitting in right now, I have recently sold my bandsaw out of it.
Okay.
I sold my little lathe, and I guess that's all I've sold. so I've only sold 2 pieces. I got rid of a router table out of the garage, brought a Laguna into the shop. So like, yes, I'm going to evaluate. I think what I'm going to do, because this shop is so small that there's never really, you always hear about, in publications we talk about workflow. Like, how does your workflow go through your shop? Like, the door is where rough stuff comes in and gets broken down. And then it kind of works its way through all the areas to the workbench at the back of the shop or whatever, however you have it set up, right?
Right.
We always talk about that. I don't know that anybody actually ever puts that much consideration into it. It's one of those, like, do as we say, not as we do type things. Mm-hmm. You kind of put stuff where it fits. However, I'm trying to put a little bit of thought into that. And I have some other considerations for shop equipment and shop equipment locations, simply due to the fact that I have to take photos and video in there. So the workbench is going in a certain area because it will have good backlighting from a window. The table saw is going in a certain place because the backdrop behind it is going to be nice and clean. However, I think they are... Maybe I'm not putting the table saw there because the backdrop's going to be clean. I'm making the backdrop clean because the table saw is going there. So, I am evaluating kind of what I have and where it needs to go. And I think I have spots for most everything. Talk about the big equipment being the table saw, the bandsaw, the joiner, the planer, miter saw station. Router table I don't really have a spot for yet, but that's a future self problem, as we like to say. And I also have this dual head drum sander in the garage that I need to find a space for. That one's on wheels though, as is the router table.
Okay.
So just the big stuff, the big vintage cast iron stuff, the bandsaw, the joiner, the planer. My table saw stop right now, but those are always going to stay in the shop. The lathes, the 2 lathes, those will all stay in the shop. The other stuff that is easier to move around, I think may live out in my storage area, and then I just move them in as needed.
Okay.
So the ones I'm thinking are going to do that are going to be the router table, because that's on wheels, that's easy to move. The Panther router cart, I would really like that in the shop, I think, because that's one of my favorite ways to make Morrison tendons now. So I would like to keep that in the shop, but we'll see where everything kind of finagles and fits. I picked up a restored Delta scroll saw. It's a big one. The guy was asking a very reasonable price for it being restored. It's pretty heavy, so I might try to find a place for that in the shop too. But as John has so graciously pointed out, it's pretty much full before I've even finished it. So, and it's like, it's one of those, like, I've been working inside the shop for so long now, since, November. Been in there framing and probably December. Been in there framing and stuff. It's like I know how the space feels size-wise. I don't know how it feels once you start putting equipment in there. That's really the big question. Is like, what's it really going to feel like once I start getting everything in there? Like, I can measure stuff out and say, oh yeah, there's plenty of room, but is there really? And is there really once I bring in 3 lights and a rolling camera stand? I don't know. So
Right.
We'll have to see.
Yeah.
Well, because I've been wondering, in between our video projects here, each of us have done stuff in the video studio.
Yeah.
And the video studio is a decently sized area when you think about it. Because there's been a few times where, getting ready for the next week's filming, I kind of move stuff off to the side and sweep it all down kind of a thing. And it's like, there is a lot of space in here. And we have a bunch of stuff in here, but not considering the space. There's a ton of space yet.
Yeah.
There's a good section of it that we just don't even use, that where the cameras usually go or whatever.
Yeah.
That
Would you say it's about the size of a 3-car garage, the shop area, the set
2.5
area?
probably.
Yeah, I would call it a 3-car garage,
Would you?
probably. Yeah.
Yeah, if you drive a car fill size.
Yeah, right. 5-car, probably.
Yeah. I think I measured our set at one point, and it was like 36 foot wide, something like that. I counted the tiles. I didn't actually measure it, but yeah. And that's kind of another thing. Like, if you look at our set, right? So our set's kind of a big U shape for the most part.
Right.
We don't use the center of the set, kind of maybe for the workbench, but there's a lot of camera stuff that goes around there.
Sure.
And if you look at a shop, a big square shop, okay, I think you gain a lot of real estate by adding a divider wall in the center of it, or adding hubs and putting stuff in the center of the shop.
Sure.
And that's, our shop there, back in the back, that's how it's broken up too. There's a divider wall that the 2 table saws are kind of docked up against on opposing sides.
Yeah.
So I did that same thing in my shop. Instead of making a 39 by 39 square room, there is one that's 39 by 19, and there's another that's 30. Well, not the office is there, but it's 20 by 18 or something like that. So I think it gives you kind of a landing spot for machinery, because I don't know that there's any piece of machinery that you really need to access from all sides.
No.
A miter saw, if you want to cut from behind.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do like a reverse cut.
I've seen photos like that before on some weird publication.
Yeah.
It's called back cutting.
It's for cutting aluminum.
Yeah.
So it's like you always have a air quote back of the machine, so that can always go against the wall.
Right.
There are some machines that it's probably better to have out in the middle somewhere, like a planer, for the most part, right? Like, you kind of want that. You want to be able to walk around at least on 3 sides of it.
Right.
So, like, in my shop, I'm going to put the planer and the joiner together, side by side, because they kind of share the same in-feed dimensions. Because, we always have to think, like, we talk, the table saw is, 28 by 36. Well, yeah, but the in-feed and out-feed actually makes that square foot, or that footprint, much larger.
Right.
So, as the more you can do, especially if you don't have photo considerations, because I know most people aren't in that situation, the more you can do to share footprint, in-feed and out-feed, the better, I think. Like, in a perfect world, I would be putting my, probably my jointer right next to my table saw. It's the same in-feed and out-feed. You know what I mean? I don't really need to go around the edge of my table saw ever. You can walk around the jointer, but...
Yeah.
So...
Today's podcast is brought to you by Titebond. You want a glue that you can trust, and fortunately, Titebond has the glue you need to get the job done with confidence. From interior glues with strong initial tack and short clamp time to exterior glues with exceptional strength and water resistance, look to Titebond, the right glue for your next project. For more information, visit titebond.com.
Yeah, so I mean, to answer your original question, yeah, I'm evaluating stuff, and there's some things I know are not going to make the move. That guy right there, that clamps, wall hanging clamp thing, that's not going to make the move. There are some things that are certainly making the move. Like I have that oak one wall workshop in here,
right?
And I'm actually going to split that in twain. I'm going to cut it right down the center, the top of it, because the base is actually, I think, in multiple parts. I'm going to cut the top and split it and put my shop sink in between them.
Okay.
So then I'll have cabinets on both sides of the shop sink. That will, once again for photos, that will hide a sink. So from the side you just see cabinets instead of a sink. So,
right.
So yeah, there are certainly things that will make the move, certainly things that will not. I think the biggest thing is going to be getting some of the bigger stuff in there and then kind of evaluating, like, okay, table saw's in place, bandsaw's in place, jointer's in place.
Now fill stuff around it
and stuff. Yeah. And there are some other considerations that I'm going to kind of keep in mind. One of the projects that I'm going to be working on sooner rather than later, is going to be a miter saw station. It's going to be actually a Festool only build, which will be kind of interesting to see how that goes.
Okay.
It'll be built around their Capex. I kind of have the ability to scale that to whatever length I really want. So I think once I get stuff in the shop and it's like, oh, okay, you know what? That miter saw station needs to shrink a little bit, because if I shrink it by a foot, I can fit the router table here, and then it doesn't have to go out in the storage area. Stuff like that. So.
Well, and plus, like, different tools have, I mean, notwithstanding the fact that some tools are just a self-contained unit, but, like a miter saw stand, I feel like can and probably should be a little taller, because it's got a more comfortable work height, which means that another workstation could be lower and below it, saving space.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to, because that's one of the things that I have a hard time dealing with, is small tool storage.
Sure.
Like the cordless tools. Like, where do you put all those? I have a lot of Ryobi tools. Like, I hate to say it. Send the hate. Send it. I'm getting off that platform, but send it. But like, I mean, so I have, I'm just sitting in here. I see my hot glue gun, my pin nailer, my Dremel. I think there's a couple others floating around. I know my impact driver's out in the other shop. It's like, where does all that crap go? Or,
right.
I have some stuff from Festool. So there's sustainers, and it's like, where do those go? And that's where I'm trying to utilize some of that, like, the miter saw station. I'm going to have swing out, like, stable doors, so all that stuff can roll in and out from the bottom. It's that type of stuff that I have a hard time figuring out where it's going to go. Same thing with, like my grinder, my bench vise, my buffing wheel. Like the stuff I use for, turning tools or for restoring vintage tools, like I want that stuff somewhere. I just don't know exactly where I want it yet. I know that I built a couple of vice stands for video edition. I think I made one for video edition, and I just built a second one. And then I kind of connected the two with the table. And that's where I got my vice, my grinder with my sharpening setup for my turning tools, and then I have a buffing wheel. It's a buffer and a wire wheel on the other vice stand. I know I don't want that grinder to live on those, because I want to be able to roll my grinder to whichever lathe I'm using at that point. But I still want the vice stands. I don't know where I want them though. So there may be some of this stuff that goes on we're going to call it the sweaty side. So the unair conditioned side. we may put some of this in the sweat box.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, it sounds like you need a power tool workstation and a revolving corner.
Nope.
Yeah.
I don't think I have any corners left. I don't think I have corners
Because you
left.
could put all your grinders on the different, on the turntable.
Good.
And just
Yeah. See, I don't think I have and I feel like corners are always one of those oh, what the heck do I do with the corner? Like we always the corner is kind of a crappy spot. But I have everything. My corners are filled up. One has French doors, so you can't use that corner because that's where you enter. The other corner I have wired for my dust collector, so that's going to hang in the corner.
Yeah.
Because that's a pretty good spot for it. The other corner is going to have the drill press in it, because I think that's probably a pretty decent use of the drill press kind of shape. So it's I'm kind of out of corners now.
Yeah.
But.
That clamp cabinet that you have in there, the original concept for that, the design brief on that, if you will, was supposedly for a corner cabinet clamp storage system. And the designer at the time came up with that. Because we have a pair of those. We have a pair of those in the main shop at Woodsmith here. And when they were set up, you can put it in a corner because there's the outer open shelves, but to me didn't quite meet the criteria for maximizing corner space with clamp storage. And I think that would still be kind of a fun project of making a corner cabinet for clamp storage.
Like a clamp Lazy Susan?
Yeah, I don't know that it necessarily... Yeah, Lazy Susan. I would say not, but I think you could do a layered look where you have some of your less frequently used clamps farther back and then either swing out sections or whatever that you could get to that would have your more used clamps in front.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's right there.
Just
I'm not a
John has to
designer.
pick it up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the other thing I have sitting here that I don't know if it's going to make it into the shot. I don't know what the hell to do with this thing. It was that... Remember that carved trim tool cabinet? I started building a walnut one.
Yeah.
It's sitting here. It's what the heck do I do with this thing? I started the base. It needs drawers, and then it would be done.
Just give it to Becky.
I like the idea of it. And maybe it gets a big tool cabinet's kind of on my docket as well. I have this long wish list of projects I want to build. So maybe it gets wrapped into that somehow.
There you go. I mean, the tool cabinet that was a big tool cabinet. So
Well, it was, but I'm thinking this one's pretty deep, pretty tall. I could make two others a little shallower and go on each side of it. So because I'm thinking I want something big and pretty looking for photos. But yeah, I don't know. My dad always said, do something in one hand and wish in the other and see which one fills up first. So. I don't know what he was talking about.
Yeah.
it's wisdom of the ancients, really, is what that is.
Okay.
Yep.
So, yeah. Did I show you guys my new spoke shave last time we podcasted?
I don't remember. Show it anyway.
Okay. Well, so I joined. So I thought I was joining. So there's this thing called Bench Talk Live. Okay. I thought it was a podcast, but it's not. It's just like an international woodworking guild meeting. So I got invited to join it, which was fun. I mean, it was cool. People from Australia, Ireland, the UK, people from all over were on it. There's like 40 or 50 people. Okay. And I was invited to join it by my buddy Rusty, who did a spoke shave build in the last issue of PopWood. and because it was on spoke shaves. So he had made this spoke shave for me out of a piece of ebony that I had.
Oh, that's cool.
So, and it's like it is one of the best made spoke shaves you'll ever use. So, so he made this guy for me. And the reason I brought that up is because there's another, like, what is it? It's like, check this spoke shave out. Like, what the crap is that? Like, that blade's 3.5 inches wide on it. And I think,
wow.
I think it might have somebody's social security number stamped in the back right there.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure. It's missing a digit for a social security number, but it would not be the first. It wouldn't even be the 10th tool that I've got that had somebody's social on it. And it's all bronze. Like, it was suggested during that live that it was maybe a ship maker's, because it's bronze. It wouldn't rust. Yeah. So it was suggested maybe it was like a ship maker's shave for like masts and whatever else. Yardlings, is that a thing in shipbuilding? I don't know. So, I don't
John has 4 yardlings.
Yes.
He does.
I think that's a unit of measure. It's like
maybe.
a half of a yard. A half of a yard is a yardling.
So,
Like, how many yardlings is in an acre? That's what I want to know.
you guys ever have projects that just kind of go south? And they just kind of go south because of some stupid decision you made.
Nearly all of them.
Go on.
Well, you guys were both there. Maybe John wasn't there when I lit this bowl on fire. No, he was, because he gave me the lighter.
I was there. I had the lighter.
So,
was an accessory.
It was. This was sitting on my workbench, and I've been looking at it ever since, and it just makes me sad. And it's like, I'm a dummy. So I had been working on this bowl. Okay. Mm-hmm. Super figured maple. This is from Phil's tree that we took down over a year ago, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Super figured maple. And I rough turned it back in November when we did it. And then I had stuck it in my cabinet. I had a little bit of time one day, Monday last week when Colin was coming down. I'm like, I'm going to finish that bowl because it's nice. I know it was nice maple. So I finished it out. And I have, for figured maple, my toolbox is at Chuck's shop right now. But for figured maple, what I like to do is I like to give it a shellac coat that is slightly tinted. Okay, the slightly tinted really wicks into the figure, and then when you sand it back and you put a clear coat over top, it just really pops the figure. You're basically slightly tinting the figure. I don't know if my shellac that I had sitting back at the lathe in the office had evaporated a bit, because it was way deeper color than I expected. It was too much color. So I sanded, I cut. I was trying to get as much of that color to come off this bowl as I could. So I'm like, it's a trans tint dye. I'm going to throw a bunch of denatured alcohol on it. So I had basically soaked this bowl in denatured alcohol. Okay?
Right.
And I had gotten a lot of the color to come off. So I'm sitting there, and Colin had just gotten to the office from Minneapolis. So I'm like, all right, we need to get going on some of the stuff, kind of make the most out of our time when he's down here. I'm like, I need to dry this super fast. Alcohol burns. Like, it flashes off pretty quickly. I've done it on the lathe. Like, you spray something down with alcohol, you flash it off with a lighter, it's gone in, 10 seconds. It just kind of burns off. This bowl was thin enough that it was saturated.
Right. Because when you lit it up, it was like lighting an Olympic cauldron at the opening ceremonies.
It was the freaking goblet of fire. It was because it was blue too, because it's alcohol and it was blue. Mm-hmm. So I was at least smart, and I put it on top of a paint can, okay? Because I'm like, this thing's gonna burn. I didn't realize that it was actually gonna burn. So I had areas that got toasty. So I'm like, God, what a dummy! Like, seriously. it burned for probably 30 seconds, and it was hot. So I had some scorch marks on it. I'm like, I just freaking ruined this bowl. Like, I couldn't get the scorch marks to come out. I got them to come out of the outside for the most part.
Yeah.
But the inside is just charred, and I can't get them to come out. And it actually burned the rim more than anything, so I ended up doing this little textured rim on it, which I'm actually kind of cool with. Like, I don't mind that. It's kind of like it's like a pie crust rim.
There we go. A rustic pie crust.
Yes. It's like a homemade pie crust, Phil. It's not a Marie Callender pie crust. But I think I've decided what I'm going to do with this. So I've been beating myself up about this thing. I'm like, God, this is a really nice, piece of maple. I was excited to have this sitting on my shelf with all other 85 bowls that my wife hates. I think what I'm going to do, and I've seen a couple people do this, I'm going to bandsaw this thing right down the center. They'll give me 2 halves. And then I'm going to mount them on the wall as little bucket, not buckets, but throw
like trays.
Yeah, like trays.
Okay.
I think that's a decent way to save this.
Yeah. If that doesn't work out, you could pour some alcohol on them and turn them into wall sconces. It's like little flaming.
Yeah, there's no bad ideas here. It's all.
The first bad idea has already happened.
Yeah.
Don't light your bowl on fire.
After soaking it in
lots
of denatured alcohol.
Well, it was probably half a quart of denatured alcohol. Which, John, I think, brought up a good point during the burning, which is what we're calling that.
Right.
He's like, I'm a little concerned that we've never set a smoke detector off in the shop.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of fire. There was a lot of smoke. It smelled like s'mores in there for a while.
Yep.
They might be purely decorative.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we've lit some stuff on fire in there, and nothing's ever went off.
To be fair, I think they're actually heat-activated devices, so it's not really a smoke detector. So
you got to light 2 bowls on fire to produce enough heat.
Directly under it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm going to have to do something with it. Because right now it's just sitting there as a reminder of my failure. Maybe that's what I need to keep me motivated. It's just to be reminded of my failure.
Yep. They're all lessons.
Yeah.
Opportunities to excel.
And you know what? Just tell myself there's always more pieces of figured maple. Pretty much every soft maple tree has some form of figure in it somewhere.
Because I have a section of it yet, and I've been making some spoons from it.
Yeah.
And it's that tree, or those trees, I guess, it's really interesting because some parts of it carve really nicely. It's like slightly harder basswood, just very agreeable. And then you get other parts where, man, it's like I was trying to shape the handle of one of the spoons that I was working on, and the grain, it was like all the grain. Up, down, facing me, going the other direction. I could not get anything. Like, I couldn't even use a scraper on it to get it to be smooth. So,
see, and I wonder if there isn't, this is what fascinates me about the way these trees grow. These trees, every tree grows. I wonder if it isn't the fibers getting compressed down. So you get some areas where it's fibers grew how they're supposed to. Some of them got compressed down, and that's where you get that really nasty, that's what gives us figure is compressed fibers.
Right.
I wonder if it isn't something like that where it's kind of accordion it down and it's making it denser. Because, we know that wood is different densities throughout the tree. In different areas, wood is a different density. If you put a bowl blank on that has a lot of sapwood, you know that because it vibrates because the sapwood's lighter. So I don't know. It's odd. I don't notice that on this stuff turning it because, as long as it's a sharp tool, it all cuts pretty well. But you had mentioned that with that. You're like, some of this is like styrofoam. Some of it's like a cinder block.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just really weird because, I want to use hand tools while I'm doing it because it's just fun that way. But then, you see a lot of folk who are making spoons or utensils or carving stuff, and they get these really smooth, polished surfaces, and they're just using a a couple of knives and a draw knife and a, spoke shave or something like that. And I was doing that on this, and it was like, it's not going to happen. So yeah. I'm using hand tools such as files and rasps and sandpaper, just in order to get, because it's like one thing that, you can kind of just change direction of the tool. Yeah, that works. But where that junction is, or if you have several of those, event horizons right next to each other, then you just can't change direction fast enough.
Yeah.
So anyway, the shape of them, I've been able to improve my technique and learn some more on that, but it's just like some materials are meant for sandpaper.
I've heard we sand what we don't understand.
There you go.
So true. That's what my grandma used to say.
Oh. She doesn't anymore, though, does she?
No, she doesn't say that anymore.
There you go. Very nice. All right, if you have any wisdom of the ancients that you would like to pass along to us that relates to woodworking, or not, we want to hear about it, you can put that in the comment section on our YouTube channel, or you can send us an email, woodsmith@woodsmith.com. Want to give a special thanks to Titebond for sponsoring today's episode. They have a full range of glues, interior glues that set up very quickly, like their Speed Set, exterior waterproof glues like Titebond 3 that we're using all the time here, including on a poker table that probably won't see outside use, but the Titebond 3 just gives us the extra work time that we need on it. So you want to check out all their offerings at Titebond.com. The free plan that goes with today's episode is a table saw ripping jig. We've been having to rip a bunch of thin strips and narrow pieces, and doing that on a consistent basis at the table saw can sometimes be a little bit of a challenge. So there's a cool jig that one of our editors designed, and we're going to have that as part of the free plan for today's show. You can check that out at our show notes page. That's at shopnotes.com/podcasts. Thanks, everybody. See you next week on the ShopNotes Podcast. Bye.